It's kind of slipped by, I have to say. When I read these statistics, I'm thinking, I never counted up to make sure they were right. No, it just feels good to me. I feel so thrilled that I'm still around. I never thought I'd still be around, and even when I'd been singing for about 10 years, I thought, okay, I can have a long career. But I didn't think it would be this pace. And we're beginning to discover that rock and roll can be done whether you're 16 or 60, as long as you do the right song. So I'm very, very lucky to still be around and having success too.
How much do you remember about the late 50s, Living Doll and the Shadows, Lionel Bart, all that sort of stuff, and of course the exciting change in music at that time?
Yeah, well, I remember all of that very, very well. I mean, it was such a thrill. Living Doll was my first #1. Move It was my first record, and it got to #2, and then there was a slide downhill with the next 2 or 3 songs. But then Living Doll crashed up and went to #1, and it kicked off a whole new thing for me. But it was such an exciting time because, you know, the thing about that time, Martin, was that it was the beginnings. It was the birthplace of rock and roll. No, that's not quite true. It was born in America, but it was becoming fast known to us that the Americans were never going to be able to keep ownership of a thing like rock and roll. It now belongs to the planet. And some of us are able to do it. And in those days, we were finding our way. So being in Britain and being a rock and roll singer with Marty Wilde, Vince Eager, Billy Fury, Dickie Pride, we were kind of, without even thinking about it, we were kind of creating a British scene, which became a European scene. And in the end, as you know, we've produced some fantastic pop singers. There was a time in America, if you looked at the top 10 people in America, 7 or 8 of them were from Britain. It was quite an incredible time. So it was an exciting time to be in those early sort of rock building days.
What you've done is change your music style a number of times over the decades. You've done so many different sorts of styles. It's almost unprecedented amongst pop artists to do so many different sort of things.
If you've got a length of time behind you, and then you look back, you can see all the changes. There have been some fantastic artists, for one reason or another, just haven't lasted long. They haven't had a lengthy career. But I bet you if they had stuck around, they too would have tried all sorts of different things. But it is important, I think, for any artist to say, okay, what's happening today? I may not like all of it, but there again, I never liked all of it. When I started off liking Elvis, Buddy Holly, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, the Everly Brothers, there must have been hundreds of other rock stars that I could have bought, but didn't. You just pick out the ones you like. So even today, you think, what is going on with technology? How is it going to help me make records? How can I compete with Robbie Williams and the others? They're all great. So you just think, okay, what have I done in the past? I've just done the best record I could make for that moment.
I guess one of the highest accolades is the knighthood as well. But any particular highlights in your career that you have fond memories, perhaps personal highlights?
Well, you mentioned the knighthood. I think that's going to be the highlight of my life, really. But if you're thinking about highlights, I can remember when I was doing the London Palladium and Bruce Forsyth walked on with his hands behind his back and stopped me singing. I mean, I'd sung the song and I was about to start another one. He stopped me, and there was this gold disc for Living Doll. Well, you're talking to someone who left school at 16 and a half, and at the age of 19, 2.5 years later, was being presented with a gold disc. It was impossible feeling. And then the young ones. When I released the young ones, it went straight in at #1. Now, in those days, things never went to #1 straight away. Very rarely did it happen. Lonnie Donegan, the skiffle singer, did it. I did it. It was not an easy thing to do. And when I remember when I was on tour then, and I was in Liverpool at the Liverpool Empire, we started the act, and the crowd were noisy and raucous all the way, and I'd saved the young ones to the last, and I did it. Well, the place, like, it exploded. And I'll never forget moments like that. They're just highlights for anybody, really. I mean, anybody who had been in my shoes would have felt the same thing. It was just wonderful when a dream comes true and then goes beyond your dream.
I guess one of the other highlights for many people who are fans of yours and also fans of tennis was your impromptu performance at Wimbledon.
I did make it quite clear to everybody that was involved there, at the committee and everything at Wimbledon, that they shouldn't expect me to do this again if it rains. In fact, now when it rains, I'll quickly rush to the toilet. But
you had some great backing singers, as I recall.
I did. Martina Navratilova, Pam Shriver. I mean, they were all there. Liz Smiley. It was a great, great event eventually. And the thing is, of course, when they came and approached me, it was the wife of the secretary. It was Mrs. Gorringe, whose idea it was. And her husband came and said, you know, would you be prepared to do something? And I said, oh, I don't have a guitar here. I mean, there's no way I can sing. He said, no, well, what about being interviewed? So I said, no, that'd be great. I'd love to be interviewed. So we did the interview. At the end, the interviewer said, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to Cliff Richard, but I'm sure all of us here would love to hear him sing. Well, my heart sank. So I thought, look, it's pouring with rain, I'll try and make them laugh. So I sang Summer Holiday. I thought, this is the wrong song to sing here, but I'll sing it. By the time I started the second song, which may have been Bachelor Boy, a troop of people dressed in white came freaking out and behind me, and it was Martina and Pam and the others, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. But if I ever tried to do it again, it would spoil that moment, I think, because then people would doubt that was spontaneous, and it was spontaneous.